What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Manifix. And today we're going to be covering the STRIXHAVEN spoilers, but mainly what I consider to be the top 10 most playable cards in the 99 of your commander deck. So I'm not really going to be covering any commanders today. I'm going to save that for another time potentially, but strictly the cards that are going to be good in the 99 of your deck rather than as your commander. So let's get started here with number 10, and that is Crackle with Power. So Crackle with Power costs XXX in 2 red for a sorcery that says Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets. Now, at first glance, this card doesn't really seem that powerful. A lot of these X damage spells in red tend to seem not all that powerful at first glance. But if you really just kind of start to break down the card, it does get to be pretty good. Obviously, the higher X is. So if X is 1, you're paying a total of 5 mana to deal 5 damage to 1 target. That doesn't really seem that great. But if you're able to cast this for 8 mana, so X is 2, you're going to deal 10 damage to each of up to 2 targets. So that's a total of 20 damage for 8 mana. That does seem pretty good. And of course, as it gets higher, X is 3, that's a total of 15 damage to 3 targets for 11 mana. And then X is 4, now we're in like game-ending territory where we can just deal 20 damage to 3 of our opponents and then, I don't know, a creature or something and almost win the game, if not win the game. So yeah, it's a fantastic spell with a lot of mana. And it seems pretty good. All right, so number 9. This is going to be STRIXHAVEN Stadium. STRIXHAVEN Stadium is a 3-cost artifact. It has a tap ability that adds 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. And then you put a point counter on STRIXHAVEN Stadium. And then whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, you remove a point counter from STRIXHAVEN Stadium. Then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, you put a point counter on it, and then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game. So this is it's a ramp, what do you want to call it, manafact or ramp artifact for 3 mana. So usually you want these things to be 2 mana, but the upside to this is that it can win you the game, or at least knock one of your opponents out of the game, which I think is a pretty darn good upside just for 1 extra mana. So it seems like it's pretty worth playing, honestly. It's going to be probably seen more so in creature-heavy decks or token decks, stuff like that. But yeah, I think that seems pretty good as well. All right, moving on to number 8. We have a double modal, double-faced card. This is a creature on one side and a sorcery on the other. So it's augmenter, pugilist. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Probably not. Augmenter, pugilist. We're just going to stick with that. For 3 mana, it's a creature, troll, druid. It's a 3/3 with trample, but it says as long as you control 8 or more lands, it gets +5/+5. So this is going to be, mid to late game, a 8/8 with trample for 3. So, okay, that's fine, whatever. But the flip side is what makes it really interesting. This is Echoing Equation for 2 blue and 3 other, so a total of 5 mana. It's a sorcery that says choose target creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of it until end of turn, except those creatures aren't legendary if the chosen creature is legendary. So that's really interesting. This is really good in like a token deck. It could be used as like a token deck finisher. Let's say you have a bunch of 1/1s out there, but then you have like a 6/6 or something. You can cast this and make all of your 1/1s 6/6s, and that could even close out the game for you. But it also, I think, has an interesting use in certain decks to copy or make copies of your commander. Let's pretend you're running a Yarok deck, which obviously runs a bunch of creatures because a lot of creatures have ETB effects, and you just make all of them copies of Yarok and then cast a creature. You're going to get tons and tons of ETB triggers off of that. Or maybe you're running an Dragon deck and you just make all of your dragons copies of the Dragon, and then you swing out with them, draw tons of cards, and get tons of free permanents. I mean, that could end a game, honestly. So That seems pretty darn good in the right build. Lots of different scary scenarios that could arise from casting that card, so I really like that. All right, moving on to number 7. This is Body of Research. So this is 6 mana total, 3 green, 3 blue for a sorcery again. That's a running theme in this set for some reason. Sorceries are a big thing. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your library. So this is infinitely better in Commander because we start out with 99 cards in our library, whereas in Standard they start out with 60, or minus 753 for us, minus 792. But yeah, this thing can be massive. I mean, depending on what turn this is played, this could end up being like something like an 80/80 for 6 mana. So that's just insane. Now, I mean, obviously it doesn't have trample, and it doesn't protect itself from a Doomblade or anything like that. So yeah, it's easy to remove, and it doesn't have trample, so people can just chump block it. But if you do have a way to give this trample, that could knock an opponent out of the game, or if you just fling it at them, that'll knock them out too. So yeah, you can do some interesting things with this card, and I like it a lot. It's unique. Next up is going to be number 6, and this is Archmage Emeritus? Archmage Emeritus? Something like that. This is a 4 mana total, 2 blue, 2 other. It's a human wizard, 2/2. It has Magecraft, so whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. We have a lot of effects like this, and most of them say whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card, then discard a card. Well, this one just says draw a card, so you don't have the downside of having to get rid of one that you don't need. You get to have your cake and eat it too. And this just seems to be honestly a really solid card draw engine for Spellslinger decks, Niv Mizzet type decks or Storm decks, like Kess. So yeah, I think this is a pretty solid addition to those builds. Next up, we have number 5. Number 5 is Rushed Rebirth. So this is a 2 mana instant, 1 black, 1 green. It says choose target creature. When that creature dies this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser mana value and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So this is kind of similar to like an Eldritch Evolution-esque card, but it could be even better in some cases. So the main thing of note here is that it doesn't say choose target creature you control. It just says choose target creature. So let's say you have this in like a Doomblade in hand. You can cast the Doomblade targeting, I don't know, like a 6 mana creature that one of your opponents controls, and then in response cast Rushed Rebirth. Rushed Rebirth goes off, and then when that creature dies, your Rushed Rebirth triggers and allows you to search for a creature with CMC 5 or less from your library and put it onto the battlefield. That's the other big thing about this, is that creature that you search for goes onto the battlefield, which obviously is infinitely better than having it go into your hand or on top of your library or something like that, which most tutors do. No, this one says put it straight onto the battlefield, which is way better. So it seems like a really solid tutor card. It is a little bit situational, but in black, well, in green and especially in black, you're going to have plenty of removal. Plus, your opponent's creatures die all the time anyways, or even if you're running sack outlets of your own, you can target your own creatures, so there's just a lot of flexibility with that. Even though it is a little bit situational, it's still probably not all that hard to get off. And yeah, I do like this card a lot. Okay, moving on to number 4. This is Accomplished Alchemist. Accomplished Alchemist is 1 green, 3 other for a elf druid. It's a 2/5. It has 2 tap abilities. The first one, tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So obviously we don't want to pay 4 mana for just a mana dork that can tap for any color. That's not that great. But the second ability is where it's at here. It says add X mana of any color, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. This is an absolute must-have card in just about any deck with substantial life gain. This can get you tons of mana. I mean, I've seen decks before where they can gain upwards of like 100 life in a single turn. And if you're able to do that and then tap this for 100 mana, that should be able to win you the game at that point. So yeah, this seems like a really, really powerful card in life gain deck. You'll see this in like Selesnya, Tristani type builds, I'm sure. And yeah, just any sort of life gain deck, it's probably going to be slotted in there. Seems like a really, really solid card. Number 3 is Blade Historian. So this is a 4 mana human cleric. It's 4 Boros mana, so any combination of a red or white. And it's a 2/3 human cleric. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. So this is very similar to cards we already have, like Rage Reflection or Berserker's Onslaught, but it's cheaper than those. And giving all your creatures, well, attacking creatures double strike, that's really powerful. That's really going to help you dish out tons of damage and close out the game a lot, well, really twice as fast almost as you otherwise would be able to. So yeah, I like this option a lot. It's good to see that Boros and aggro are getting a little bit of help here. So next up, we have number 2. Number 2 is Semester's End. For 4 mana, so it's 1 white, 3 other. For an instant, it says, exile any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of the next end step, return each of them to the battlefield under its owner's control. Each of them enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature, and an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker. So what this kind of reminded me of is something like Teferi's Protection. Now it doesn't protect you as the player from anything necessarily. Although an interesting thing is you could, let's say somebody's swinging in with potentially lethal damage. If you don't block and you don't want to block and get rid of your creatures, so you can declare them all as blockers and then cast Semester's End. All those creatures will still be blocked and it will save your creatures. This will also save you, obviously it'll save your board state from board wipes. So somebody casts a Wrath, you cast this in response, the Wrath goes off, none of your creatures die, they all come back at the end step. And what's great about this is it exiles them and then they come back to the battlefield. So they hit the battlefield again. If you're running any ETB effects, all of those are going to trigger again. Not to mention the fact that all of your creatures are going to come back with an additional +1/+1 counter, so they're going to come back even more powerful than they were before. And another great thing on top of that is this is great with planeswalkers too. If you're running a bunch of planeswalkers, like a Super Friends deck, or you just happen to have some out, those are going to come back. It's going to reset their loyalty. So if you've been using the minus abilities or people have been attacking them, trying to whittle them down, it's going to come back with the base loyalty +1 loyalty counter on there. So this seems like a really powerful card, honestly, and one that I'm sure we'll see quite a bit. And then finally, we have the number 1 card, number 1 most playable card in the 99 from Strixhaven, and this is Harness Infinity. This card looks absolutely nuts. So this is, granted it does cost a lot of mana, so this is going to be definitely a late game, end game type spell. It's an instant for 1 3 black 3 green, so a total of 7 mana. It says exchange your hand and graveyard and then exile it. So if you're running a deck like Marin, Muldrotha, where part of your deck or all of your deck is designed to just put your library into your graveyard and fill up your graveyard as much as you can, this is going to be a massive card advantage spell for you. I mean, this could potentially change your hand size from like 7 to 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever the case might be. So this can put a lot of cards into your hand. Now, obviously, this is, so the other great thing about this is it's instant speed. So I know you might have thought prior to this, like, okay, well, I'm going to pay 7 mana for this. It's going to go off, and then I'm not going to have that much mana left to cast the things in my hand. Nope, not quite. Because you can wait till the prior end step. You can leave all your mana up, wait till the prior end step, cast this, flip your hand in your graveyard, and then it comes to your turn. You untap with all those cards in your hand, and now you start the turn with a hand of, 30, 40, 50 cards, whatever it might be. That's absolutely ridiculous. That can end games, especially if you're running combos and you manage to get your combo pieces into your graveyard prior to casting this. But yeah, a card advantage spell with that much potential definitely is able to end games. So yeah, that's it. What? Yeah, some pretty good cards there. But let me know down in the comments below what your favorite cards are. Do you think I got it right? Do you think I got it wrong? Obviously, these are my opinions. So if you have, an opinion and you think I got it wrong, let me know about it in the comments, because there are probably some good cards out there, honestly, that I missed. So let me know about that. And if you did like this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Anyways, that's all for me today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for getting your fix with me today. Stay safe out there. Peace out, guys.